The point of this video is to serve as a first introduction to indifference curves, which in my mind are the most central part of economics. They're kind of what makes everything else, all the other wheels, spin. Without indifference curves, we really couldn't say much at all in economics. So before we start on actually working with them, I want to just give you a better picture of what they are and how we kind of come up with them. So an indifference curve is just a line that represents all of the different combinations of goods that would make a consumer, and when it says consumer here, just read person really, a person just as happy as any other combination of goods on that line. So they will be indifferent between any combination of goods on that line. So I'm just going to go ahead and label these axes over here so that you get an idea. We're going to put, as we go down later, we're going to put apples on the y-axis, and we'll put oranges on the x-axis. So, sorry about that. So, an indifference curve then is just a line, in this context, it's a line that represents all the different combinations of apples and oranges that would make a consumer just as happy as any other combination of apples and oranges that are on that line. So that may be a little abstract in words. When we get down to the actual drawing, I think it'll make more sense. So the next big point that I want to point out is that these curves define a consumer's preferences. So these define what people like. The idea is that if we could make a curve in every single dimension that exists, so in every single different good that exists, we could exactly and perfectly define how a person would react to different prices, to different incomes, to any kind of different economic situation. Unfortunately, economists have to make a ton of assumptions about these curves, and we know that these assumptions are inaccurate. But economics has had a lot of really positive results using these assumptions, and they make the math actually work. They make the math pretty. So no one has really figured out a better set of assumptions yet to work under, so we keep on working with indifference curves. And I'll talk more about these assumptions as we get going, but the assumptions are, to me, the most important part of the entire idea of indifference curves, because they show you what economics assumes about people. And some of the assumptions are kind of far from reality in my mind. So with that said, we're going to just go ahead and get right down to an example, and I'll explain a lot more as we work through it. Okay, so imagine that the only thing that makes John happy are eating apples and oranges. So his happiness, or utility is just another synonym for happiness in my mind. That's the easiest way to explain it. Per day is as shown in the table below. So we have apples, oranges, and then his happiness. So if he eats 0 apples and 0 oranges, he has 0 happiness. He's as unhappy as possible. So we're just going to go ahead and put a point right here. This will be 0 apples and 0 oranges. Whoops. Alright, so then if he gets 5 apples and 5 oranges, he has 25 units of utility. He has 25 units of happiness. So we're going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is going to be our first point on our indifference curve. So now if he eats 4 apples and 6 oranges, he is just as happy. He is just as happy as if he were eating 5 and 5. So this is going to be a point on the exact same indifference curve because he is just as happy. So that's the point right here about the indifference of an indifference curve. That's why we call them this, is that they are the combinations of goods that would make you just as happy as a different combination on that line. Okay, so we have 4 apples, so we're going down 1 and we're going right 1. And then just to speed this up a little bit, we're also going to do this one, which is 6 apples and 4 oranges. So 4 oranges and 6 apples is right here. Okay, so all of these lines are going to be on the same indifference curve because John is just as happy eating any of these. Now we have 3 apples and 8 oranges, so this was 6, 7, 8. And I'm just going to do this kind of quickly. We also have the same thing on the other side, so this would be, what were we doing? We were doing 8 and 3. So we also have 3 and 8, 1, 2, 3, and this was 6, 7, 8. So I'm just graphing all of these points, and I'm just going to do it as quickly as possible so that I don't waste too much of your time. So then we have 2 and 12, and we have 2 and 12 on the other side also. I made this symmetric, which it doesn't necessarily need to be, but it makes my life easier. So we have 2, and this was 8, so now we have 9, 10, 11, 12. And this was 8 and 3, so now we have 9, 10, 11, 12, and down 1. And then the last ones, we have 1 and 18. So if this was 12, we have 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 right there. And 1, and this was 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So this is one of John's indifference curves. And if I can actually make this a straight line, I might be kind of impressed with myself. Oh, kind of ruined it at the end. Okay, so we're going to call this his utility of 25. So that is one indifference curve. Now, John has infinitely many indifference curves, and I'm only going to draw 2 of them here. But I'll do this one in blue. So we're going to have 10 and 10. And when you're watching this, if you get how to graph these, just go ahead and skip this part, fast forward through it. But I felt that it was important to do this so you kind of see what's going on. So we have 5 and 5 is right 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is right there. So we're going to go another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this will be the start for 10 and 10, and then we have 8 and 12. So go down 2 and right 2, and go left 2 and up 2. And then we're going to have 6 and 16. So that will be what? From 10 and or from 8 and 12, that will be left 2 and up 4. So left 1, 2, and up 1, 2, 3, 4. And from here down 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we are going to have 4 and 22, and we're not going to be able to graph this 36 because we don't have enough room. So we're going to forget about this one, and we've already done this one. So we'll go do 6 and 16 we just did. And so now we're on to 4 and 22. So we're going to go left another 2, and I just know that the top of this graph is 22, just because I've worked with it a bunch. So down 2 more, and all the way over to here. So this is another one of John's utility or indifference curves. And this one represents a higher level of utility than the previous one. So this one we're going to label U of 30. Alright, so now I want to talk about some of the assumptions that we make with indifference curves, and then kind of why these are important. So John is happier on the blue curve than he is on the green curve. So John is happier on blue because 30 is greater than 25. So 30 is greater than 25. So he has more utility. He has more happiness. And so one of the assumptions that economists make is that more is always better. So we would never pay to eat something or to consume something that makes us less happy. Now in reality that's not really true. There are lots of people that would be happier eating less, but they eat constantly and are way overweight. And they don't really realize what they're doing, or they don't act rationally is a better way of saying it. So that's one assumption, is that more is always better. So we'll call these assumptions. And I'm not going to list all of them. If you want to read up on all of them, I think it's actually really interesting. There's good articles on Wikipedia, or your textbooks all have good pieces of information about the assumptions we make. So one is more is better. Another one is that the way of putting it graphically is that lines never intersect. Indifference curves never intersect. And so the way that is written out in English is that one combination of goods corresponds to one level of happiness. 5 apples and 5 oranges can't make John both 25 units of happiness and 30 units of happiness. So I'm just going to write I see indifference curves don't cross. And then another one that I think is really interesting is that there are diminishing marginal returns, which basically means that the curves are shaped like this. So as you eat more and more oranges, you get tired of eating oranges, is what they're really saying. So you get tired of any one good, because as you eat a ton of apples, you need to eat more and more and more apples to sacrifice that last orange. Here you needed to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 apples to sacrifice that second to last orange, where before you only needed to get 4 to sacrifice your third orange, and then you only needed to get 2 to sacrifice your fourth orange, and only 1 to sacrifice your fifth orange. So you get tired of any one good. And then another one that I think is interesting is that you can always substitute between any two goods. There is some amount that will make you substitute. So I'll just call this substitutability. And substitutability. And these aren't the formal names of any of the assumptions by any means, but they're the ones that make most sense to me, and they're the way that I find easiest to explain it. So the last thing that I want to say is I said that John has infinitely many indifference curves. And what I mean by that is that there is an indifference curve that goes through every single combination of apples and oranges. So there's an indifference curve here, and there's another one here, and there's another one here, and then there's ones all the way out here and in every spot in between. Because every single combination of apples and oranges gives John some level of utility. And finally, the more and more that you go in this direction, the happier John is. So as you go to the northeast or to the top right corner, the happier and happier John is, because the higher and higher level of utility he has. Again, 30 is bigger than 25. So I hope that that's a clear introduction to indifference curves. This is by no means meant to be the kind of exhaustive list. This is just meant to be an introduction. And I've tried to explain kind of the key points without getting into too much detail. So I will see you in the next video.